My name is Ben Prunty. I did the music for FTL. When I was a teenager, I suddenly decided that it would be really cool to make music with computers and also to make music for games. And I had no musical background, but I really wanted to do it. And after I graduated from college, I moved from Maine to California because I knew that was where the industry was. Ended up working at Google for a couple of years, left Google after a couple of years because it really wasn't for me, and decided to get back on the track of making music for games. And I just tried to make a lot of friends, and I went to events that game developers would go to, game developer meetups, jams, and things like that. A friend of a friend was one of the developers for FTL. So my friend, Anton, came over one day and said, "Hey, a friend of mine's making this really cool spaceship game. You should see it. He wants music for it." So yeah, that's how I got involved. FTL is sort of a spaceship command simulator. So most spaceship simulation games involve piloting the ship. But the thing that sets FTL apart is that it focuses on command. And the piloting is completely removed. It's all abstract. You don't aim weapons yourself or fly the ship yourself. You give commands to your crew to go fix things, put out fires, fight other people who have boarded your ship, and then you can select what weapons to fire and what systems to target. And, it's all randomized, so it's very exciting, different every time, and it has permadeath, and it's really hard. And musically, it's what I tried to go for was sort of a combination of a retro sound. So kind of chiptune-esque, although I didn't really use any authentic chiptunes, mixed with sort of a cinematic sound, but without an orchestra. They didn't have a whole lot of direction for me. They said we like having a sort of chiptune sound and not being overly tense or loud. But we really like the Battlestar Galactica soundtrack with the lots of percussion. But that was about all the direction they gave me. So so I decided to try and do that. So marry the retro sound with making it more cinematic, closer to something like Battlestar Galactica. But I decided early on to not have any kind of orchestra elements, so there's no strings or anything like that. And that I was hoping that would kind of make it unique and stand out a little. Going for a cinematic sound but without an orchestra would kind of help it stand out from other similar soundtracks. Like I said, they didn't give me a whole lot of direction, and they let me kind of do what I wanted, which was great. I think that is probably pretty common for indie developers. They like to trust their creative team to do a good job, and so I would make something and send it to them, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's actually pretty cool, thanks," and then keep going. They did want interactive music. Originally, we were going to do a separate exploration music that would stop when you'd get into a battle, and then battle music would start. But we found out through testing that battles usually only lasted about 30 seconds. which makes writing a whole battle track kind of silly because it would stop in 30 seconds. And anyone who's played like Final Fantasy knows how annoying that gets after a while when there's only one battle track throughout 60 hours of gameplay. So we were thinking of doing like this crazy multi-layered interactive music, and we were talking with some other industry people who had actually done more complicated interactive stuff. But I had never done anything that complex, and I said, you know what, how about we pare it down and just have exploration and then a layer of battle on top of the exploration. So that's what we did. And if you look at the FTL album on Bandcamp, you can see like half of it is exploration, half of it's battle. And each one is a pair. So there's like a track that has an exploration version and a battle version, and they'll crossfade between the two. That actually turned out really well, and everyone seemed to think it was really clever, and I seemed to think that it was sort of a cop-out. Yeah, but it worked, so we're happy. So I take different approaches as I go. Sometimes I'll have just an idea for like a particular rhythm, and I'll just sort of run with that. Or I'll have an idea of like a feel that I want, or like maybe a different track that I want it to kind of sound like, or something that I like. Like the Zoltan music was inspired by Gustav Holst's The Planet Suite. And so I tried to go for that kind of sound. And some of them I just like improvise entirely. Like there's a track called Wasteland, and at least the Explore version, I did it like entirely improvised, and just sort of had this general idea for an atmosphere and just sort of ran with it. So yeah, it was different approaches depending on the track. The technical difficulty of doing interactive music was a challenge, because most digital audio workstations are not really made to do interactive music. So I would have to like write both the battle and explore versions kind of at the same time in the same track, and then just like mute parts that I didn't want for explore and then unmute them when I was working on it in battle. And that would get kind of confusing, and sometimes I would forget which ones were supposed to be explore and which ones were supposed to be battle. So that was kind of difficult. Another difficulty was there are two tracks that are just percussion and nothing else. Sort of a reference to the Battlestar Galactica that the developers liked so much. And doing a 3-minute track that's all percussion and keeping it interesting throughout is very hard. I like the creative freedom that I got, and I really enjoyed making the exploration track. I would usually do the exploration first and then add the battle part. And one of the most enjoyable things was making the exploration track and then thinking, oh boy, I can't wait to add crazy drums on top of this later on. And then I'd get to do it, and it was really fun. So yeah, that was pretty enjoyable. I'm a big fan of Camille Saint-Saëns, who's a French composer, I think. He did Danse Macabre, which is like one of my favorite pieces of music ever. I listened to a lot of Gustav Holst, The Planet Suite, when I was doing FTL. I was listening to a lot of funk music as well, and that's why there are a lot of strong bass lines in the FTL soundtrack, I think. I'm currently working on a solo album, so released on Bandcamp, and I'm working with Aaron Robinson on Gravity Ghost, which I've been working on for a while, but we're going to finish the game up pretty soon, I think, and working with Steve Swink on Scale, and a few other projects that I can't talk about.